Tonight's edition of Arizona Art Beat looks at what has been described as the greatest generation, the men and women who served in World War II. That service and sacrifice is the focus of a new local art exhibit. Producer Shauna Fisher and photographer Ed Kishel give us a look at this moving tribute.
Each of these photographs has a story behind it, a story of courage, perseverance, and fortitude.
I was a fighter pilot in a P-38 Lightning, and I was in the Army Air Corps.
Bill Lancaster was a teenager when he found himself in the middle of World War II in a plane that he had never flown before. This photo shows the cockpit of the plane, hundreds of buttons, and Bill says he had no idea what many of them were for.
Well, this particular airplane was number one. It was multi-engine. It was 2 engines, and all my flying had been done in a single-engine airplane. And I got into an outfit where all they had was the twin-engine airplanes, and I had to go out and learn to fly by myself because it doesn't have one fitted out for an instructor to be in there to give me any instruction. So you had to learn to fly the thing and survive it.
That lack of training proved to be deadly. Of the 90 men Bill served with, 67 of them never came home. Even now, it's difficult for Bill to remember his time in the war and those who did not return safely to their families.
It's hard to see. I don't think anybody plays it up the bad side or knows the bad side. I had guys that went with me to combat. They came over there and went down, and the first time they got in an airplane over there and tried to get up and fly, they killed themselves.
Del Ryland was a farm boy turned fighter pilot. He joined the ROTC and soon found himself here in Arizona.
I got my wings right here at Mesa at Williams Field, went over military to Italy, and flew there 30 commissions, and the war ended.
Bill and Del are just 2 of the veterans whose photographs are part of an installation at Belmont Village, an assisted living facility in Scottsdale. The nearly 24 portraits were taken by critically acclaimed photographer Thomas Sanders. What started a few years ago as a school assignment for Tom has transformed into a way to preserve these stories before they are lost for good.
My senior year of college, I had a homework assignment just to photograph a portrait of somebody. And living right around the corner from me was this big giant retirement community company. And I happened to go there asking the retirement community if there was an interesting person to photograph. And they said, hey, we have this World War II hero.
Tom's work caught the attention of Belmont's CEO, Patricia Will. She asked him to take portraits of veterans in all of their facilities.
And the reaction that we got far surpassed anything that I could have imagined. Not just because there emerged a storyline from each of these extraordinary veterans, but also because as a result of sharing their stories, often for the first time, they began to engage with one another in very different ways. Experiences that they had, often buried in their long-term memory, emerged and created a certain kind of camaraderie among them.
For Muriel Pelham, the camaraderie continues to this day. At 92 years old, she volunteers with local veterans groups. Stationed in Europe as a nurse, she spent several years there and came back stateside and continued working in various hospitals. Muriel was one of 350,000 women who served during the war.
I guess it means that I was probably helping the women to crack the ceiling because we had a hard time in a lot of opportunities to advance and do other than routine care. So I was glad I was able to do that.
With 1,500 World War II veterans dying each day in America, capturing these photos and the stories is crucial, but it's more than that.
What's special about this project is that sometimes the veterans have never had the opportunity to share their stories. So with this project of photographing and interviewing the veterans are able to be honored for their first time. And I think that's something very, very special for myself and for them. In a way, I get to give back through art by preserving history.
World War II and Korean War veteran Carl Melin agrees. He has never really talked about his time aboard a destroyer in the Sea of Japan. The exhibit is a way for his family and friends to learn more.
I think that they can read the items as to what they say, what the different fellows thought about their activity, and about their period of time while they were serving. I don't want it to be lost in antiquity, so anything that can be done and said, pictured and proofed is all to the benefit.
The veterans are all very pleased with how their photos turned out, if not a bit surprised.
Well, there's everybody else. You wonder who it was. Whose picture is it? They're never as flattering as you wish them to be, but they're factual, and that's the way it is.
Well, I was sort of surprised, frankly. I saw myself holding the picture, and of course that I recognized more than the other because, as you get older, your features change, let's face it, and I am in my 90s, so I'm up there.
I'm thankful that I still have a head of hair. I guess that's the only thing of appreciation is I still got a little hair left.
For Tom, this project brings his family history into focus. His great-uncle died in World War II, and his grandfather, a semi-famous photographer, snapped this shot of author Ernest Hemingway. It now sits in the Smithsonian.
Yeah, when I photograph the veterans, I tend to use really dramatic lighting. Some of the veterans have objects from World War II or other wars that they've hung on to like their whole entire life, and so that helps tell their story, so I have them hold that object up. And on top of that, I really try and not overly direct the veterans too much. I have them hold the object. I might have them move a little bit in terms of posing, but I don't want too much of my own idea to be projected onto them. I'm just really trying to capture their essence and their soul.
Tom's portraits are much like the men and women themselves, stark, unyielding, and stoic, with hints of vulnerability. They tell an entire life story, one that will now last forever.
The whole idea behind the project is making people more appreciative of all veterans and soldiers, and through hopefully creating an interesting artistic portrait of the veteran and reading their story, I really hope that draws them in to help put their own lives into perspective.
Tom's photos have been gathered into an award-winning book titled The Last Good War. If you'd like to see the exhibit, you can make an appointment by contacting Belmont Village in Scottsdale. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.